Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the Black History Month, the first day edition of, I guess it's February 1st, right? Uh, February 1st edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are tuned in on Facebook Live. Shouts to those who are watching on YouTube Live. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Even though I'm gonna have to switch my daughter to a new school, right? I'm sure it's gonna be a school that has tuition. I'll get into that in a few seconds. I'm not sure what the heck is happening on Instagram Live. I guess I pressed the button, and so now it's like this filter that's jumping off. So shout out to those who are tuned in on IG Live. Let me see how long I could keep that going. So as I said, today is the first day of Black History Month. But you know, that's for white folk. We do it 365 days a year, 366 in a leap year. Why? Because we recognize that black excellence is just the ability to live, the ability to breathe. And if you I'm not the most religious person, right? But if you're blessed enough, right? If you're lucky enough, you get a chance to excel at whatever it is that you desire. So shout out to all the black folk who have paved the way for us to be here today, right? You know, I know it's cliche when they say we stand on shoulders, but no doubt we definitely stand on shoulders. Even the simple fact of me having a live daily digital show from I guess the days whenever I feel like doing it at this stage of the game, but that comes from from Roland Martin, that comes from Karen Hunter, that comes from the Ellis Hayslip, right, who had soul back in 1972. I was just listening to a conversation about him and how he was just so dynamic. I'm interested in learning more about him. But these are the people whose shoulders I stand on when it comes to just content and producing meaningful content, because we all have the ability these days to get behind a microphone, get behind a camera, and to espouse our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, or in Wendy Williams' case, just critique and criticize the heck out of everything and everybody. But we got to recognize that it starts, we aren't the originators of this. We aren't the Bobby Browns of this. It started way before for us, and so I'm just appreciative to for the recognition, right, and recognizing how critical and influential black folk who have come before me, and making it so that I am able to get on here whenever I decide to get on here and talk my ish, to speak rhetorically. So I know last week we lost some legends, right? We lost Cicely Tyson. We lost John Chaney, former Temple men's basketball head coach, and it was I think now we're in the stage of we're seeing our elders become ancestors. And it's important that we not only give them their flowers while they're here, but it's also important that we praise them, that we show them love post-mortem. You know what I'm saying? I know the week before that it was Hank Aaron. I saw a post on Facebook, and somebody said, I wish I could turn this off, or social media. Somebody gonna have to school me how to get this off. Bear with me 1 second. I don't want to end the live. I don't know what was happening there, man. It was just blinking like with some fancy light. Where was I? It was a post on Facebook that I saw, and it was like, man, all the elder black people are dying. Is it trying to tell us something? And I'm like, yeah, that we have the ability to get old. Right, we have the ability to get old. I know what we see in the media. We see so many black and brown folk who are dying at such a young age. I know I'm going to be talking about Screech tonight, but that's going to bring the bigger conversation of men's health, dying of heart disease. I was looking at a study regarding Philadelphia, and I've talked about it on here previously, but the average lifespan for a black man in Philadelphia is 67 years old. the lowest of all groups. Black women are 77. The second lowest of all groups. And so when we see Cicely Tyson get to be 90 some odd plus, and I'm not sure if her daughter is an ancestor or not, because she did have a daughter at 17 years of age. You know, her daughter would be in her late 70s, early 80s. But we don't necessarily get to see that. And so, no, it's not that, the spirit guides are trying to tell us something. No, it's, if anything that we're being told is that we deserve to live full, productive lives. We saw that with John Chaney, who was in his 80s. And so there's nothing normal, there's nothing healthy about dying at the age of 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, right? We should be living much longer than we are. But that's a conversation for another day. If you see, I had to take my glasses off, man. It's one of those things where I got the heat blasting in the house, and then I got this door open to the deck. I'm not balling, right? But I do have a deck. And I have that door open, and so like the hot and cold are contrasting and making my glasses fog. These are first world problems, as some folk like to say. So we're going to get into it, man, and I'd love to hear your comments, and feel free to zoom in at, you see the number on the screen, and if you're watching on Instagram, head on over to YouTube at Phil MSW. You can see the Zoom number. It's not a guarantee that I'm going to let you in. It's one of those things where if you knock on the door, just like, who is it? Depending on the time of day, you know how to respond. And so when I was a young fella, if it was a Saturday morning, about between 7:30 and 10, I know it was the Jehovah's Witness knocking on the door. And so at that point, we just don't move. Right? I don't know if anybody has much power as the Jehovah's Witness to shut down a black household. Think about it. Because if you make a sound, they just going to keep going. And no shade to my Jehovah's Witness, my JWs, my 144,000 people out there. But y'all know how y'all be knocking on the doors. Y'all have calmed down a little bit. Instead of 17 knocks, y'all give a strong 3.5. But they be vicious joints. I don't even know where I was going with that point. So I'm going to digress and get back to the topic at hand. So, I hate doing these stories. Shouts to Dan Zui. I have no idea how to pronounce your name, but shout out to you for tuning in on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I hate doing these stories, but I think they're so necessary. I hate showing black trauma. However, I recognize how necessary it is to unfortunately show black trauma. It's not a matter of trauma porn like we see in shows. Most recently, I've been watching Your Honor, and how black pain and black problems are exploited in media. I feel it's important that we share these videos that are taking place every day, because they act as reminders. They reinforce for those of us who are out there doing the work while it is that we're out here, even though many of us do not need it. Well, I speak for myself. For others, it acts as an entry point. I have no idea how to turn the filter off. For you tuning in late, or just head on over to YouTube, right, and watch like everybody else. Salute to you, seven-figure sister. Head on over to the YouTubes. I don't know how to turn it off, so it's just going to blink, and I'm not going to look at it. And it's YouTube at Phil MSW. But back to the point of, I'm not necessarily sure, why. I'm sure. I know why we share this. We share this because it's necessary. It acts as the entry point for some people. It acts as an entry point for some people. Somebody at home is sitting and watching or scrolling on YouTube or scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on Facebook, and they see this.
To get her in the car before using that pepper spray. We'll show you the events as the pepper spray unfolds. Again, I want to warn you, you may find this disturbing.
Just there at this point.
She was taken to the hospital. She was later released. The police department says what happened is not okay. They're going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And so what you just watched was a disturbing video that came out within the last 24 hours, which shows Rochester Police Department assaulting a hold on, let me get this boy out the chat. All right. What you see is Rochester Police Department assaulting a 9-year-old girl. What you see is Rochester Police Department officers scolding her for being childish, for which she responds, "I am a child." What you see is a 9-year-old girl who may be having a mental health episode, hence the reason why the officers were called out to the home, and I'll touch on that in a second. You see how inept, inadequate, and why it's inappropriate to have police, especially white police officers, respond to mental health crises of black and brown people. What you saw was a disregarding of civil liberties, of civil rights, by pepper spraying a child. That should be considered child abuse. What you see is a child screaming out that they want their father, which tugs at my heartstrings because I am the father of a 12-year-old black girl. What you see is I'm gonna call it the adultification of black children, black girls in particular, which Monique Morris, who in her 2012 report, Race, Gender, in the School to Prison Pipeline, expanding our discussion to include black girls, states that black girls are subject to a comparable racial profiling that occurs with adults, one that can alter their futures as a result of unconscious bias that inform decision-maker ideas about culpability and punishment. In layman's terms, they view black bodies as being much older than they are. And so when the officer, the clown, the coward says you're acting like a child, that's saying he doesn't see the innocence that's bestowed upon little white 9-year-old girls. What he's saying is, I view you like an adult. I view you like a criminal. And whatever needs to happen for me to get you where you need to be, I'm willing to do. And so it's so many things that intersect here, right? The first question is, how could we ever have this real discussion of reform? How do you reform people like that? How do you reform departments like that? How do you reform policies and procedures that doesn't differentiate between a child and an adult and the type of punishment that they incur? How do you reform that? This is something that is deeply rooted. No training is going to have those white men and that white woman to view this black girl as being human. Pushing her into the snow. Where to the point where she asks, "Can you please get the snow off of me? It's cold." and she's told you're acting like a child. The point where their tolerance is so low, where you threaten to spray her with pepper spray, and at this you say, you know what, just spray her at this point. And then you spray her, and then you say unbelievable. Like she's the problem. And not you in the ideology of what it means to be a police officer. How do you reform this type of system? You know, I sit and I think of ways, right? Because I'm a social worker. It's one of the things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to problem solve. We're supposed to look at things from a strengths-based perspective. But yet I can find no strengths in that situation outside of that little black girl. Because she's extremely resilient in a situation where she shouldn't have to be. A black family, a black community who continues to be assaulted, to be violated, to be maimed, to be killed. Mind you, this is the same police department that murdered Daniel Prude by putting a bag over his head. Someone else having a mental health episode. We talk about what can we do, right? What can we implement? What can we institute to lessen the likelihood of this happening? You know, so people always go to training. Then you have individuals who say, well, listen, you know what? We need to create a system, a better mental health response system. Which, listen, I'm fully in favor of as long as it doesn't involve the police. Best case scenario, the mental health professional goes out on their own, which they do. We have crisis deployment teams all around the country. They're understaffed. They're underpaid. They're undervalued. But they exist. Right? They exist. And one was created in Rochester, New York. A person in crisis team to handle cases like this. But lo and behold, what happened? They were occupied, right? The various teams that exist were occupied handling other matters. So what does that say? Staffing is a problem. Hence the reason why the police went out. And so best case scenario, these teams go out on their own. Worst case scenarios, if the police do show up, they wait in their car like they do all the time. You can ride down any block here in Philadelphia and see them lounging in their car, either asleep or doing paperwork. They can pull up to a scene and just chill. But park a few blocks away though, right? Because we know what the mere sight of police do to incite issues. It's an adversarial relationship from the start. It's an adversarial relationship between the black community and police that has been in existence for 400 plus years. And so that's why it's mind-boggling to me for state reps like Morgan Cephas, probably a cool sister. But to potentially propose legislation for individuals to go out, for behavioral health response workers to go out with the police is just faulty. It's just faulty logic. It's problematic. Here you have individuals, especially social workers, and I speak specifically to social workers who go out, who have been proposed in other parts of the country by the NASW, right? I don't care who's at the helm of a system. In this case, I do think it is a black indigenous person of color. But they're still upholding the whiteness standard. They're still recommending they're still recommending recommendations. They're still recommending recommendations. They're still recommending recommendations that uphold white supremacy, that marginalize and disenfranchise black and brown folk. Hence the reason why on the state rep's Instagram post where she talked about this proposed legislation, I talked about how problematic it is because it's the antithesis of what social workers believe. And I'm not going to go too much into it. Go view the previous posts on Instagram that I made, Phil_Roundtree, where I go into detail. Here you have a professions that are truly about the people, who believes in self-determination and resilience. And you're talking about matching them up with a system rooted in racism, as we see here, implicit and explicit bias, one that's punitive in nature, one who doesn't have the cognitive wherewithal to think about how to de-escalate a 9-year-old, who blames a 9-year-old for how they're responding, blaming them for pepper spraying, having a pepper sprayer and handcuff her. And then of course you have the police unions who come out, and of course they're going to back the blue. And so we have this fundamental difference, and that's another element of it, right? You're talking about teaming up people whose foundations are completely different. And we know who's going to win that power struggle, right? Because one person has a gun and the other one has a brain. And so we know who's going to win. Unfortunately, the fear of one will more than likely supplant the knowledge of another. And so, no, I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of reform. As I always say, you got to tear it down and build it back up again. It may not be seen in my lifetime, but it needs to happen. A quick update, right? A quick update, because you know once something goes viral, again, if this did not go viral, would this happen? Those police officers have been suspended. Why? For spraying a chemical irritant in the face of a distraught and handcuffed 9-year-old girl. Pending an investigation, so they get to chill, collect their paycheck for a few months, as the police, internal affairs, IAB, investigate their brethren. Hence the importance of a police oversight committee, a community oversight committee, to hold these individuals accountable. But that's too much like right? The people can't have the power, even though they're supposed to be they're supposed to be conduits of the people. Civil servants, what they used to call them. I don't know if that exists anymore. And of course, when things like this happen, we know the politicians got to get involved. So earlier today, Senator Samara Brock and Assemblyman Demond Meeks, both Democrats, announced legislation to prohibit the use of chemical agents against minors by police officers. Unfortunately, you have to make a law. You have to make a law to inform cops of what not to do. Right? Common sense would say, listen, I'm an adult. I can calm a 9-year-old down if necessary. At least without pepper spray. Now, for child that says they're saying they're suicidal, which they allege this young lady did, and that she was potentially homicidal, I could almost justify why handcuffs were used. To protect someone from self-harm. Right? I could almost justify it. But that's once you've exhausted everything else. But you know what happens, right? It's snowing, dead winter. This black family, this little black girl acting up. Why would I want to be out there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours trying to calm her? Yeah, that doesn't sound right, right? Because God forbid if it take a couple hours to calm a 9-year-old down. No, we have to do what's necessary. We have to do what it takes to get her to comply. And so they've introduced these laws. Okay. Again, everything is reactionary. More evidence as to why you need to start over. But hey, what do I know? I'm no mortal man. I wish that young woman the best. I wish her the best therapy. I hope the family, in particular her, right? Because I don't know what's taking place with the family. There needs to be some cashing out. Because that's the only consequence that's respected. The cash out. Because we know that if these officers get fired, they'll go to the next county over and get rehired. For what it is. Ignoring what it is that they've done wherever they're coming from. We saw that in Wisconsin. Several times. Listen, we're going to keep the party going, man. We're going to keep the party going. This next topic, it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul, man. You know, and I don't necessarily talk about white folk on this show. Unless it's white folk that means something to me. Like my homie White Mike. You know, I have him on here from time to time. Screech has died. Dustin Diamond, Screech. I think that might be his most notable role, his only role. I don't even count what he did on Celebrity Fit Club or the other places that he might have been. He was and will always be Screech Powers, who loved Lisa for years. And I think that's why I resonate with Screech. I've been there, crushing on somebody for years. I mean, once I get pushed down the steps, you know what I mean? I can't keep going, but I'm still crushing on you in my head. You know, I've talked about the 4-page letter that I wrote in 9th grade. That was a Screech move. I'm not going to say I necessarily learned it from him. But we've seen, you know, him try to give Lisa the flowers. We saw the robot that he had. that he wanted to communicate to Lisa how much he loved her, cared about her, and somehow she ended up with Zach, which I was frustrated too. I wanted to punch Peppery in his face, and that's why I was so happy when Slater did it, when they had that notorious rumble, because Zach was winning too much in the dating scene, and hence the reason why so many of us can relate to Screech. But unfortunately, he died today at the age of 44 from lung cancer. And, you know, he underwent his first round of chemotherapy a few weeks ago. Again, this is something that's transpired within the last month or so. He went through chemotherapy. He was optimistic. You can recover from stage 4 lung cancer. But unfortunately, in his case, he did not. And I think the most notable, the most, I don't want to say telling thing that I take from his passing is this idea that men need to go to the doctor. And I feel like, again, we keep getting these reminders. It was John Singleton. It was the bull. Who was it? Luke Perry from 90211 and 90210. We're talking about heart attacks, talking about strokes. We see Dr. Dre just had a stroke. You know, individuals in their 40s and 50s and 60s who are passing away. Now, I don't know what early detection could have did in Screech's situation. I don't know if a stage 1 cancer is I mean, ideally you would think there's a higher chance of recovery between stage 1 and stage 4 cancer. But again, I don't know how, you know, how fast it metastasizes and what have you. But what if this was 6 months ago and this was detected? What if this was a year ago and it was detected? Will we not be saying rest in peace Screech? Will we be saying, is he in the new Saved by the Bell reboot with everybody else? You know, I didn't cry when Hank Aaron or Cicely Tyson or John Chaney died. But this one hit a little different again because this is your childhood. This is someone in your age range who passes away. You know, I have memories of watching Saved by the Bell. I definitely cried when it was the last high school episode. I ain't cried when it was the college years because that was kind of fugazi. But again, these connections that we have. And so if you don't get anything from this, take care of yourself. I'm about to say and each other. But take care of yourself by going and getting checked out. If you don't do it for you, do it for somebody you love, somebody you care about. Because in the end, it might just save your life. So that's all I got, man. Listen, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I might be back tomorrow night. We'll see how I'm feeling. But until next time, peace.